On this video, we're going to take a look at lead jobs in the system. So how do we create them? How can we grade them? We're going to look at converting them. And lastly, how can we search for them as well? So I think the most important thing to start with to understand is what is the definition of a lead job. So by a lead, what we mean is it's not an official job that you're being given as a requirement. So there's not necessarily a budget for that job, or maybe officially it hasn't been mentioned as a job, or you might have sourced it or heard about a job from a competitor or from a candidate or on social media. So it's a job you've heard about, but you've not necessarily been given to work on. So you might want to then add it in the system so you can chase after that lead. So where you add it is exactly the same place as adding a standard job in the system. You can either do that from the company record or from a contact record. So you can see here in the company, you've got in here the normal job icon, so adding a standard job in there, that's a requirement, or on the right, you've got lead. So again, you can do exactly the same thing and create the same, but it's a lead version of that job. So it won't go in your active or standard open jobs in your studios. It'll go into a different studio, which is called BD Perm, BD Contract, or BD Temp. If you go into a contact, you've got exactly the same option in there. So you can see here you've got lead and you've got perm, temp, or contract. So if we click on that to add a new job, you can see you've got very minimal in there that's mandatory, because a lot of detail you might not necessarily know about that lead. So if we go and put in there a job title in there, so if we say, so you've heard about a job you want to work on, or a potential role that might be coming, but it's not been confirmed. You can put in the specific job category if you want to. And you'll see there's a status in here, and it always defaults to unfilled lead, perm, contract, or temp, depending on what you're working on. So just to show you, there are other options in here as well. So you can add in backfilled jobs as well, or project in the system. So if it is a backfilled job, you could then put in the current worker and a notice period. If it's not a backfilled job and you haven't changed the status, you cannot put this data in. If you do have an idea of the start date, you can add that information. Same with the salary, the reason, and the source. So the source is something you may know. So how did you hear about that job in the first place? So I can see a job board. And then confirm. So it's going to add that job into the system under your name. And on the right, we can see it's called a lead perm job in the system. Now the front page looks a little bit different from our standard job page. You've got in the key details though, linking it to all the above records. We can see the status in there, and we can see created and updated date. And on the right, depending on what you've put in, again, it will show that information. So there is an option here for grading. Can you see that? So we mentioned that as well. So what is grading? So basically, if you're working on a lot of lead jobs at one time, and you don't always have a lot of time to work on those leads, what you might want to do is go and grade them to how warm you're getting with that lead, or how well you're doing with the lead. So I'll show you how you can do that in a second. What I do want to point out is from the summary, you'll see you've got your options of pages in there. So you've got a requirements page, salary and benefits. So again, these are slightly different from the standard job record, because it's thinking you're going to go and then build a case, get more information on that role. And then you've got shortlist, CV sent, but notice after that, you don't have anything to do with interviews and placements. The reason for that is because before you get to interview stage, or if you get to interview stage on this job, it will force you to convert that job into a standard job in the system. So let's take a look. So we've got a shortlist. So notice there you can add people, and you can go and run a search and add people from there. Again, like I said, you can send CVs. You do have these options in here, but if you try and run any of these, it will force you to convert in there. So we'll take a look at that in a sec. So if we go down to the management page, in here, this is where you can go and grade a job. So see, you've got grading, you can click on that. And our options in there are A to E. So every job you're going to start off is likely to be an E, unless you've been handed it by somebody at the company who might have mentioned, look, there might be a job coming up. We're not 100% certain, but at least that's kind of, it's a warm lead, isn't it? You know the person already, or you might know them, somebody that's linked to them. So you might straight away add that as a C. So you can decide what these mean between A and E. There we go. So if we go back to the summary page, that front page, you'll see it also shows on that page. And it's great when you're looking and using the studios particularly, because then you can sort or filter by the grade. And again, when you're running a search, it's really useful as well. So if we go back to that shortlist page for a second, and if we add somebody from there, do you notice every time you try and do a workflow in a lead job, it's always trying to get you to convert it to a job, to a live job. And you always have to say yes or no. So do you want to convert it to a job first? And it's like, no, we just want to shortlist somebody. So then it will go and let you do that. So if we go and find our candidate in there, and then see we can confirm. So this part is the same as a standard job in the system. So again, like I mentioned, you can go and click on send CV. And if you click on interview, this is what it says. So you must now convert it to agree to the job order to run the workflow. Do you want to convert it now, yes or no? So then when you say yes, what it will do is it changes it then into a live job, so an open job that you're working on. You also get a KPI in the system saying that you've converted a lead job to a standard job, which I'll show you where that is in a second. And then lastly, you would then go and arrange the interview as normal. So that is how the lead job works in the system. So really fantastic tool. So instantly when you run that, it will change it from a lead permanent job to just a standard permanent job in the system. Where you can see you've got that conversion within your KPIs, if I go into the KPIs in here, you'll see there is a specific one, leads converted to jobs. So you can have a target, so the amount you need to do per week or month. And even if you don't have a target, you'll be able to see how many you've done in a given period. So great to see how you're doing with your BD in there. So last thing for us to look at is the searches. So in searches, if we go to our full list in the system, you can see you've got a lead job search. So very similar to the combined job search, just you're specifically looking for those lead jobs. So you can come in here, you can go and look for lead jobs for a certain client, certain job types. So maybe you just want to see your perm lead jobs. You can see them by status. You can go and see start and end dates in there as well. And then you can go to history, look at things like when they were created, or you just might want a list of your own lead jobs. So you can go to primary consultant, put in your name or multiple names if you work side by side with certain people, run the search, and then you'll be able to see a list of those jobs in there. So taking a look at lead jobs in the system, they are fantastic in there. Don't forget you've also got the studios in there. So please go and take a look at those if you're starting to use this. They'll be really useful on helping you sort and focus on your business development and your lead jobs in the system.